All right, so we're diving deep today
Deep.
into some really fascinating material you sent our way.
Yeah, can't wait.
Our whole goal with these deep dives is to help you really get the core of what these texts are saying.
Absolutely. Cutting through all the noise and finding those nuggets of wisdom.
And today we're zeroing in on something pretty powerful.
Powerful stuff indeed.
It's all about tuges. And specifically, we're looking at pages 349 to 354.
A crucial section, especially considering where it sits in the larger context of the book.
Exactly. You know, in the last deep dive, we explored the limitations of the human experience, as it's presented in 2A.
Right, sort of the boundaries and constraints we face in this earthly realm.
But now in 2A, it feels like we're getting this teaching.
A teaching, yes, a guide.
On how to use the power of our spirit's consciousness.
Exactly.
To transform that limited path.
To break free, transcend.
Into a triumphant journey towards something greater.
Towards a higher goal, a higher state of being.
So where do we even begin with these pages? What's the core idea we need to grasp?
Well, first, it's important to remember this knowledge builds on what came before.
Right, it's not just this isolated chunk of information.
Exactly. Remember, Seyates, 8th and 9s. They laid the groundwork for understanding humanity's place in this grand scheme.
Ah, yes. Sejath was all about our higher spiritual center.
That's right.
Then in E, we explored that impersonal environment around us.
The forces that shape our lives, the context we're born into.
And finally, Sejai showed us how our will and that environment interact.
To create the tapestry of human experience, right?
Yeah.
Each eye builds upon the last.
It's like we're assembling a puzzle.
A cosmic puzzle.
And this piece, this 8 and X, fits right in.
It does, and interestingly, it's part of a lower Turner, as the book calls it, which mirrors a higher grouping, but in the earthly realm.
Okay, so that's a Save an A and that 9X.
Precisely.
Where Save an X was all about intuition, our connection to the higher self.
Our inner compass, if you will.
And X8 focused on the external world.
The living, breathing environment we're all part of.
So then, X8, it really feels like the culmination.
The culmination, yes, the integration.
Bringing it all together to understand what it means to live a truly conscious life within that whole framework.
Precise.
I'm looking at page 349 here.
Okay.
And the first thing that jumps out is this idea of the conscious life of the spirit.
Yes, the heart of it all.
It's not just that we have a spirit.
Right. It's about this active consciousness that resides within it.
And that's where the real power lies.
Absolutely. That conscious awareness is the key.
But then it gets even more interesting. Because it says the spirit isn't just this single unified thing.
I see. Tell me more.
It has these two sides, an active side and a passive side.
The active and the passive. Intriguing.
It's almost like the doer and the
beer.
Yes, the beer, the observer, the one who feels.
A fascinating duality.
I'm thinking the active side, that's got to be our reason, right? Our logic, our analytical mind.
Exactly. That which drives us to act, to analyze, to dissect the world around us.
And then the passive side, that's got to be our intuition.
Yes. That deeper knowing, the gut feeling, the whispers of wisdom that come from beyond the rational mind.
And what really stood out to me here,
tell me,
is that the text stresses how crucial it is to develop both.
To cultivate a harmonious balance.
Right. It's not about one being better than the other.
It's about recognizing the power of each and integrating them into a unified whole.
It's like if you're all action all the time, no reflection.
You might miss those subtle cues, the whispers of intuition guiding you toward a different path.
And on the other hand, if you're all intuition, all feeling, no action,
you might become paralyzed, unable to manifest your potential in the real world.
Trapped in that endless cycle of contemplation.
A prisoner of your own thoughts.
And the text uses these really vivid examples from Greek mythology.
Oh, I love those stories.
To illustrate what can happen when that balance is lost.
Do tell.
Well, there's the myth of Phineas and the Harpies.
Yes. A cautionary tale indeed.
Phineas, he's this blind seer.
He can see the future, but not his present.
Right, and he's constantly tormented by these harpies.
They steal his food, make a terrible mess, prevent him from living a normal life.
And it's presented as an allegory for what happens when the passive overwhelms the active.
When we become dominated by these intense, uncontrollable states, unable to engage with the everyday world.
It's not peaceful passivity.
No, it's a state of being besieged, overwhelmed.
And you're drowning in your own emotions.
Unable to break free, to take action.
And then, on the flip side, There's the story of Orpheus.
Oh, Orpheus, the musician who ventured into the underworld?
And his story is all about the dangers of neglecting the passive.
Of relying too heavily on will and determination, forgetting the importance of receptivity.
He was so focused on bringing Eurydice back from the dead.
His grief, his longing, fueled his quest.
He used his music, his talent, to charm his way into the underworld.
A feat few could accomplish.
But ultimately, his over-reliance on active will led to his downfall.
He looked back. He doubted and lost her forever.
And even more significantly, the text points out that he was ultimately destroyed by the Bacchantes.
The followers of Dionysus, those who embody ecstatic, untamed energy.
And they're specifically identified as representatives of passive initiation.
It's a powerful reminder that we can't just force our way through life with sheer willpower.
We need that receptive, intuitive aspect to guide us.
To open us to a deeper understanding, a more holistic experience.
And then the text shifts gears a bit.
Interesting.
And introduces this idea that the spirit goes through these cycles of life and death.
The eternal dance of coming and going.
Until it reaches a point of detachment from nature.
Detachment, a release from the bonds that tie us to the material world.
There's this really beautiful analogy.
An analogy, I love those. They bring these concepts to life.
It's like a dancer who leaves the stage after the audience has truly seen her performance.
She has given her all, expressed herself fully, and now it's time to move on.
It's like the spirit has experienced its connection with the natural world.
Played its part, danced its dance.
And once that understanding is complete,
when the spirit can say, I have seen, I have contemplated her, and nature replies, I have been seen.
That bond is resolved, and the spirit is free to move on.
To explore other realms, other states of being.
And this leads into a really crucial concept. The breath of Ea.
Ah, yes. The life force, the animating principle.
And it's intimately connected to our human consciousness.
The text describes consciousness as the boundary reached by this breath.
Okay, so Ea, it's this constant, ever-present energy.
Perpetually alive, constantly flowing.
And our consciousness, it's like the surface of the water.
Stirred by that breath, always in motion, never truly still.
So it's not some static thing.
No, it's dynamic, ever-changing, a reflection of that underlying life force.
But then the text points out the limitations of the earthly human.
Right. In our current state, we're very much bound to the physical.
Our consciousness, it's mostly confined to the physical plane.
We experience reality primarily through our senses.
And that limits our perception.
It narrows our view of the vastness that lies beyond.
But then it brings back the square pentacle from Uz.
Ah, the symbol of the different planes of existence.
Adi, Anupadaka, and Atma.
Increasingly subtle levels of reality, each with its own unique characteristics.
And it explains how Ea, this breath of life, manifests in each of these realms.
Its projections take on different forms, expressing itself in diverse ways.
And here's the key point.
I'm listening.
The worlds within this pentacle, they're not coordinated by the essence of consciousness.
Right, that core essence remains constant.
But by the freedom and limitations of its attributes.
So it's how consciousness expresses itself, how it interacts with each plane that creates the diversity?
Exactly. And that's why our experience of consciousness can be so different depending on the realm we're considering.
It's like water taking on the shape of its container.
The essence remains the same, but the form, the expression changes.
A brilliant way to put it.
And the text gives this example of time.
Time, that elusive concept.
To illustrate how different the attributes of consciousness can be.
Okay, tell me more.
In the physical world, time feels fixed, linear.
We're bound by its relentless march, unable to alter its course.
But in the astral realm, time is much more fluid, abstract.
The text even says that our perception of movement can be reversed there.
It's mind-boggling.
It challenges our very notion of reality.
And it really highlights how those attributes of consciousness are molded by the plane it's operating on.
So our experience of time itself is shaped by the level of consciousness we're inhabiting.
And then the text takes us on this incredible journey.
A journey through the evolution of consciousness.
It starts with this very basic, amorphous state.
Like cosmic gas clouds, with only automatic reflexes in the physical world.
Very rudimentary awareness, the barest flicker of consciousness.
But even in that primordial state, the potential is there.
And as the evolutionary process unfolds,
Consciousness begins to take on more complex forms.
we see the development of reason in the astral realm.
The emergence of thought, of the ability to analyze and understand.
Then plant life takes root in the mental plane.
A new level of awareness, a responsiveness to the environment.
Animal life reaches the level of buddhi.
Intuitive intelligence, a deeper knowing that transcends the purely instinctual.
And finally, the birth of humanity,
The culmination of this grand evolution.
with a pure projection of spirit in the fourth world.
A quantum leap in consciousness.
And it all leads to this remarkable stage,
The pinnacle of this evolutionary arc.
where consciousness reaches the very limits of era.
The boundaries of the life force itself.
And here's where it gets really wild.
Tell me.
Consciousness projects itself fully into what's called the Great Initiate,
The embodiment of the pure spirit of everlasting light.
almost like a divine being within this framework.
A being of pure consciousness, radiating boundless love and wisdom.
And then there's this voluntary letting go.
A demise, the text calls it.
But it's not a negative thing.
Oh, it's a release, a transcendence.
This letting go generates an excess of power.
A surge of energy that propels consciousness beyond the limitations of the physical Ia.
And it dissolves that connection, allowing consciousness to permanently leave the physical world.
A complete transcendence of physical existence.
But it's not the end of the story.
Right, the cycle continues.
The text talks about the cyclical nature of immortal human life.
This back and forth between earthly existence and dwelling in the vastness of space.
Driven by the pulsation of the physical Ia.
That breath of life, that cosmic rhythm.
It brings consciousness into the physical world for birth.
And then draws it back again for death and potential rebirth in other worlds.
That's like an endless cosmic dance.
An ebb and flow of consciousness throughout the universe.
And our individual consciousness, it fits right into that cycle.
Each of us a tiny wave in that vast ocean of being.
The text uses this image of a continuous curve derived from a sine wave.
A wave that rises and falls, representing the fluctuations of our consciousness.
The portions below the axis, those are the periods between incarnations.
When our consciousness isn't actively projected into the physical world.
And then within a single lifetime,
There are moments when our consciousness reaches its peak.
those moments of full, vivid awareness.
When we feel most alive, most connected to the universe.
And it says that those peak experiences,
They happen at the turning point of the wave.
when the plane of consciousness, which has been descending into the physical world, starts to ascend again.
Like a surfer riding the crest of a wave.
It's incredible to think that those moments of heightened awareness,
They're not just random occurrences.
they're actually pivotal points in our consciousness's journey within a lifetime.
A glimpse into the vastness of our true nature.
And then the text gets into the very definition of consciousness.
The core of what it means to be aware.
It defines it as the feeling of one's own being.
That simple yet profound experience of I am.
And it distinguishes between the consciousness of the higher world
Where the feeling of ego, of self, is direct and unfiltered.
and the consciousness of the world of being.
Where that feeling of ego is experienced through its imprinted aspects, our experiences, memories, and so on.
So in those higher realms,
It's pure being, unclouded by the filters of the material world.
and here, in our everyday reality,
Our sense of self is always colored by our interactions with the world around us.
and the movement of consciousness
The constant flow of our awareness.
is defined as the change in the totality of those aspects.
All those experiences, memories, thoughts, emotions.
The plane of consciousness, it's like a snapshot.
An instantaneous picture of all those aspects at any given moment.
And thinking in this context.
It's the process of that plane of consciousness shifting and moving.
And because it's always influenced by elements of the relative world.
Both our thoughts and the movement of our consciousness are relative, ever-changing.
So it's this incredible tapestry,
Woven from the threads of our experiences.
constantly shifting and evolving.
Reflecting the dynamic nature of consciousness itself.
So what have we learned from this deep dive into Abhyani?
Well, for me, it's all about the power of conscious spiritual life.
Right, it's not just about existing. It's about being aware of our existence.
And about the crucial balance between our reasoning and intuitive capacities.
It's about integrating those two sides of ourselves.
To navigate this journey of life with wisdom and grace.
We also explored the nature of consciousness itself
How it evolves across different levels of reality.
and how it fits into this grand cosmic cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
A cycle driven by the breath of Ea, that life force that animates all things.
And ultimately, I think it shows us how our seemingly limited earthly experience,
Can be transformed into a triumphant journey.
through the power of our spirit's consciousness.
Exactly. It's about awakening to that potential within.
To recap, in this deep dive into Yagas, pages 349 to 354,
We've explored the potent nature of conscious spiritual life.
we've emphasized the importance of balance.
Between reason and intuition.
We've examined the nature of consciousness and its evolution across different planes of existence.
And we've touched on the cyclical rhythm of our existence between earthly lives and the wider cosmos.
And our goal was to illuminate how that seemingly narrow path of our earthly experience can indeed become a triumphant journey.
Fueled by the power of your spirit's consciousness.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to consider.
As you reflect on this cyclical nature of consciousness,
And the vital role of balance.
how might a deeper understanding of these principles
Influence how you perceive your own life's journey.
and those significant, often fleeting moments of heightened awareness?
It's a question worth pondering.
As you continue to explore the intricate dance between your own conscious awareness and the grand cosmic dynamics,
That may commence reveals.
thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.